The Galactic Council chambers hummed with the self-important chatter of beings who had convinced themselves they were the smartest creatures in the universe. Which, to be fair, they had been for about 3,000 years until those pesky humans showed up and started asking uncomfortable questions like, why do your weapons have so many unnecessary buttons, and has anyone actually tested whether your shields work against a simple kinetic projectile? Admiral Vorthak, whose species had evolved from what could only be described as a cross between a flamingo and a very pretentious lobster, clicked his ceremonial claws against the obsidian conference table. His pink feathers ruffled with barely contained excitement as he addressed the assembled council members. Esteemed colleagues, he began, his voice carrying that particular tone reserved for people who think they are about to deliver the speech of the century. We have a problem. The humans. Chancellor Klebex, a being that looked like someone had taken a potato, given it 6 arms, and taught it to wear overly elaborate robes, nodded sagely. Indeed, Admiral. These Earth creatures have been far too comfortable in our presence. They show no proper respect for our technological superiority or our military might. Just yesterday, chimed in Councillor Blurble, a gelatinous mass of blue-green that somehow managed to convey smugness through mere quivering. Their diplomat had the audacity to ask why our battle cruisers need 17 different types of warning lights. 17. As if the complexity isn't the entire point. The chamber erupted in scandalized chittering, squeaking, and what could generously be called indignant warbling. How dare these newcomers question the time-honored tradition of making everything unnecessarily complicated? Admiral Vorthak raised one elaborately feathered wing for silence. Fear not, my colleagues. I have devised the perfect solution. We shall show them footage of the most terrifying predator in the known galaxy. Once they witness the raw, unbridled savagery of the Rixian Shadow Beast, they will understand their place in the cosmic hierarchy. Chancellor Klebex's potato-like form practically vibrated with glee. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The Shadow Beast has been the apex predator of the Rixian system for millennia. Its razor-sharp claws can slice through titanium, its stealth capabilities are unmatched, and its hunting instincts are so refined that it has never failed to catch its prey. Never? Asked Councillor Blurble, wobbling with anticipation. Never, confirmed Vorthak. The creature is pure death incarnate. Silent, efficient, merciless. When the humans see what real predators look like, they will finally comprehend how dangerous this galaxy truly is. They will beg for our protection and accept whatever terms we offer. The assembled council members exchanged what passed for knowing looks among their various species. This was perfect. The humans would be put in their proper place as the trembling junior partners they clearly were meant to be. When do we spring our trap? Asked Klebex, rubbing his 6 hands together in anticipation. Tomorrow, declared Vorthak, his chest feathers puffing with pride. I have already arranged for their diplomat to attend what he believes is a standard cultural exchange meeting. Instead, he will receive the education of a short, fragile lifetime. The chamber filled with the alien equivalent of evil laughter, which sounded remarkably like a combination of balloon animals being twisted, old door hinges creaking, and someone gargling with gravel. They were absolutely certain this plan could not possibly backfire in any way whatsoever. After all, what could possibly be more intimidating than the most feared predator in the known galaxy? Captain Jake Morrison stepped off the transport shuttle and immediately regretted every life choice that had led him to become Earth's diplomatic representative to the Galactic Council. The space station's atmosphere had that particular smell that suggested someone had tried to make the air universally breathable by mixing together the preferred atmospheric conditions of 47 different species. The result smelled like a gym sock that had been marinated in alien sweat and left to ferment in a flower shop. Welcome, honored human representative, trilled a voice that sounded like a piccolo being murdered. Jake turned to see what appeared to be a walking stick insect wearing a butler's uniform. But if butlers traditionally wore 17 different sashes covered in metals, that probably meant most improved posture or excellent attendance. Thanks, Jake replied, adjusting his simple black uniform and wondering why every alien species seemed to think that diplomatic clothing required at least 12 pounds of decorative metalwork. I'm Captain Morrison. And you are? I am Diplomatic Aide Scriddle, third assistant to the Undersecretary of Preliminary Introductory Meetings, with the insect being announced with the kind of pride typically reserved for Nobel Prize acceptance speeches. Jake blinked. That's quite a title. Oh, this is merely my junior position, Scriddle explained, his antennae twitching with what might have been modesty. In only 40 more years of dedicated service, I may be promoted to second assistant to the Undersecretary of Preliminary Introductory Meetings. The dream, Jake muttered under his breath. As they walked through the station's corridors, Jake couldn't help but notice that everything had been designed by someone with a serious case of overcompensation syndrome. The hallways were unnecessarily wide, the ceilings absurdly high, and every door required at least 3 different biometric scans to open, including one that appeared to measure the length of his eyebrow hairs. Your species must be very impressed by our technological marvels, Scriddle commented, gesturing grandly at a water fountain that required voice commands, a palm print, and what appeared to be a brief philosophical discussion before dispensing liquid. Oh, absolutely, Jake replied, his tone so dry it could have been used to preserve mummies. On Earth, we've never seen anything quite like a water fountain that takes 5 minutes to give you a drink. Scriddle's antennae quivered with pleasure, completely missing the sarcasm. Yes, efficiency through complexity is our specialty. Wait until you see our conference room doors. They have 47 different opening mechanisms, each more sophisticated than the last. I can hardly contain my excitement, Jake said, wondering if it was too late to request a transfer to literally anywhere else in the universe. They passed by what appeared to be a gift shop selling authentic Galactic Council memorabilia, including T-shirts that read "My parents visited the most important governmental body in the galaxy," and all I got was this overpriced shirt with 17 different languages I can't read. Tell me, Captain Morrison, Scriddle said as they approached an elevator that appeared to require a doctoral thesis on vertical transportation theory to operate. Your Earth species must have very few predators, yes? Living on such a peaceful world must make the greater galaxy seem quite frightening. Jake pressed his lips together to keep from laughing. Oh, you could say that. Earth is definitely a place where things exist. I suspected as much, Scriddle nodded knowingly. Your species has that soft, untested look about them. No natural armor, no claws, no venomous sacs. How do you even survive? Honestly, it's a mystery to me too, Jake replied, stepping into the elevator and watching Scriddle input a 12-digit code, scan his compound eyes, and recite what sounded like the periodic table in order to make the doors close. As they rose toward the conference level, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into some kind of elaborate setup. The aliens were being just a little too condescending, a little too eager to emphasize how dangerous and scary the galaxy was. It reminded him of his older brother trying to convince him that the basement was haunted when he was 8 years old. The Council is very excited to meet with you today, Scriddle continued. They have prepared a very special presentation about galactic wildlife. Wildlife? Jake repeated flatly. Oh yes, very educational. Very instructive about the realities of life beyond your peaceful little world. Jake nodded slowly. Yeah, this was definitely a setup. The question was, what exactly did they think was going to scare him? The conference room was exactly what Jake had expected, unnecessarily enormous, and with a table that could have doubled as a small aircraft carrier and chairs that looked like they had been designed by someone who had heard the concept of sitting. Described secondhand, but had never actually seen it done. Admiral Vortak and Chancellor Klebex were already seated, their expressions radiating the kind of barely contained glee typically seen on children who think they have successfully hidden a whoopee cushion under someone's chair. Captain Morrison, Admiral Vortak exclaimed, his pink feathers practically vibrating with anticipation. Welcome to our humble council chambers. Please sit. We have such sights to show you. Jake settled into a chair that was apparently designed for a species with 3 spines and a tail. Sights, huh? Let me guess, vacation photos from your summertime share on Rigel 7? Chancellor Klebex's 6 arms gestured dismissively. Oh, Captain Morrison, your human humor is so quaint. No, we have something much more educational in mind. We thought it was time you learned about the true nature of this galaxy. The true nature, Jake repeated, already knowing exactly where this was going. Right. And let me guess, it involves something scary that's supposed to make me wet myself and beg for your protection? The two aliens exchanged glances, momentarily thrown off by his directness. Well, Admiral Vorthak coughed. The galaxy can indeed be a dangerous place for unprepared species. Unprepared like humans? We would never presume to. Oh, you would absolutely presume to, Jake interrupted, leaning back in his chair. Come on, gentlemen, let's skip the foreplay. You've got some kind of monster movie queued up. You're going to tell me it's the scariest thing in the galaxy. And then you're going to wait for me to faint so you can offer me a protection deal that heavily favors your interests. Am I close? Chancellor Klebex's potato-like form deflated slightly. You are, surprisingly perceptive. I'm human. We invented this con, so let's see what you got. Admiral Vorthak straightened his ceremonial sash and activated the room's holographic display system, which required him to press approximately 47 buttons in a specific sequence while humming the galactic anthem. The lights dimmed dramatically, and ominous music began to play. Behold, Vorthak intoned, the terror of the Rixian system. The apex predator that has ruled the shadows for millennia. The creature so feared that entire civilizations have relocated rather than share a system with it. The holographic display flickered to life, showing what Jake had to admit was a reasonably impressive-looking creature. The Rixian Shadow Beast was about the size of a large dog, covered in dark, mottled fur that seemed to absorb light. It had sharp claws, glowing yellow eyes, and moved with the fluid grace of a natural hunter. Witness its lethal efficiency, Chancellor Klebex narrated as the footage showed the beast stalking through what appeared to be an alien forest. Its stealth capabilities are unmatched. Its claws can slice through solid titanium. Its reflexes are faster than thought itself. The creature on screen pounced on what looked like a space deer, bringing it down with swift, economical movements. It has never failed to catch its prey, Admiral Vorthak added proudly. Never failed to kill what it hunts. It is death incarnate, Captain Morrison. Pure, efficient, merciless death. The two aliens leaned forward expectantly, waiting for Jake's horrified gasp, his terrified pleading, his desperate requests for protection from such a nightmarish creature. Instead, Jake squinted at the holographic display for a long moment, then looked back at his hosts with an expression of genuine confusion. "That's it?" he asked. "That's it?" Admiral Vorthak repeated uncertainly. "Yeah, that's your big scary monster? The thing that's supposed to make me pee my pants and beg for your protection?" Jake gestured at the hologram. "Are you serious right now?" Chancellor Klebex's 6 arms flailed in agitation. "Captain Morrison, perhaps you did not fully comprehend the creature's capabilities. It is the apex predator of an entire star system." "Okay, but look at it," Jake said, pointing at the screen. "It's like, what, 60 pounds? 70 pounds tops? And it hunts by pouncing on things smaller than itself." He paused, considering. "Honestly, it reminds me of my neighbor's Chihuahua, except the Chihuahua is probably meaner." The silence in the room was deafening. "Your neighbor's what?" Admiral Vorthak managed to croak. "Chihuahua. Little dog. About 8 pounds of pure hatred and Napoleon complex. That thing on your screen? Mrs. Henderson's Princess Buttercup would eat it for breakfast and ask for seconds." The two alien dignitaries stared at Jake as if he had just announced his intention to juggle black holes for entertainment. Chancellor Klebex's 6 arms twitched in what might have been the alien equivalent of a nervous breakdown. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Vorthak said slowly, his pink feathers now drooping with confusion, "I fear you may not fully grasp the situation. This creature has terrorized an entire star system for thousands of years." Jake shrugged. "Yeah, and my Aunt Martha terrorized 3 counties with her Christmas fruitcake. But that doesn't make it galactically significant." He leaned forward, genuinely curious now. "Seriously, this is the scariest thing you guys have? A medium-sized cat that hunts space deer? It is not a cat. Chancellor Klebex protested, his potato-like form quivering with indignation. It is a highly evolved apex predator with supernatural stealth abilities and titanium-cutting claws. Right, Jake nodded sagely. Tell you what, if you want to see a real predator, I could bring one from Earth. Something that would make your shadow beast there look like a stuffed animal. The two aliens exchanged glances, their earlier confidence rapidly evaporating. That is impossible, Admiral Vortak declared, though his voice lacked conviction. Earth is a peaceful world. Your species clearly evolved without significant predatory pressures. Oh, buddy, Jake said, pulling out his communication device, you have no idea what you're talking about. Earth isn't peaceful. Earth is where evolution went completely insane and decided to see how many different ways it could create things that will absolutely ruin your day. He began scrolling through his contacts while the aliens watched with growing concern. Let's see, Jake muttered. Who's available for a little interstellar travel? Can't bring a honey badger, import restrictions. Saltwater crocodile won't fit in the transport. Oh, wait, perfect. Captain Morrison, Chancellor Klebex said nervously. Surely you cannot be serious about importing a creature more dangerous than the Shadow Beast. Why not? You guys wanted to show me scary, right? Fair's fair. Jake hit a contact and held the device to his ear. Hey, Tom. It's Jake. Yeah, I'm fine. Listen, I need a favor. Can you ship Mr. Whiskers to the Galactic Council station? Full diplomatic pouch, all the paperwork, yeah, the usual carrier. What? Oh, just some aliens who think they know what a predator looks like. Admiral Vorthak's feathers were now standing straight up in alarm. Mr. Whiskers? That sounds like a pet name. Oh, it is, Jake confirmed cheerfully, still on the call. Tom, make sure to include his favorite toys, the catnip, and about a week's worth of food. No, not the dry stuff, the good wet food. You know how picky he gets, right? Thanks, Gron. You're a lifesaver. He ended the call and looked up to find both aliens staring at him with expressions of barely controlled panic. You have imported a predator, Chancellor Klebex said faintly, to this station, where we live. Well, you wanted to see Earth's idea of scary, Jake replied reasonably. Besides, Mr. Whiskers is very well behaved. Mostly. Mostly? Admiral Vorthak's voice cracked on the word. Oh, he's a perfect gentleman. Unless he's hungry, or bored, or annoyed, or if you move too quickly, or if you smell interesting, or if you look at him wrong, or if he decides he doesn't like you for completely arbitrary reasons that make sense only to him. Jake paused thoughtfully. Actually, now that I think about it, you guys might want to invest in some really good insurance. The two aliens were now huddled together, whispering frantically in what sounded like 17 different languages. Captain Morrison, Admiral Vortak said finally, perhaps we have been hasty in our assessment of Earth's predatory species. Oh, I haven't even gotten started, Jake grinned. Mr. Whiskers isn't even close to the top of Earth's food chain. He's just what we call a house predator. You know, the kind we keep around for entertainment. Chancellor Klebex made a sound like air being slowly let out of a balloon. Entertainment? Sure. You should see what we do with the really dangerous stuff. We have entire television channels dedicated to people who wrestle alligators for fun. Alligators? Armored reptiles about 12 feet long, mostly teeth and bad attitude. But don't worry, Mr. Whiskers is much smaller. How much smaller? Admiral Vortak asked weakly. About 8 pounds. The relief on their faces was palpable. 8 pounds, Jake continued conversationally, of concentrated evil, lightning reflexes, and complete indifference to your continued existence. The relief vanished instantly. 3 hours later, the cargo bay of the Galactic Council station was filled with more alien dignitaries than it had seen since the great diplomatic incident of 2387, when Ambassador Glutch had accidentally declared war on his own species during a dinner toast. Word had spread throughout the station that the human was importing something that allegedly made the Rixian Shadow Beast look like a harmless pet. Admiral Vorthak stood at the front of the assembled crowd, his pink feathers now completely flat against his body in what could charitably be called suppressed terror. Chancellor Klebex had positioned himself behind 3 different barricades and was wearing what appeared to be a full suit of ceremonial armor that probably hadn't been used since the Battle of the Really Uncomfortable Chairs. "Remind me again why we are all here," asked Counselor Blurble, his gelatinous form quivering with what might have been anticipation or complete panic. "Because," Admiral Vorthak replied through gritted beak, "we may have severely underestimated the predatory capabilities of Earth species." "But it is only 8 pounds, protested diplomatic aide Skrittle, his insect-like form trembling slightly. "How dangerous can an 8-pound creature possibly be?" The assembled aliens muttered agreement, though several had still taken the precaution of positioning themselves near emergency exits. Jake stood calmly beside the transport ship's cargo bay doors, checking his watch. Should be any minute now. Tom always was punctual. "Captain Morrison," Chancellor Klebex called from behind his barricades, "perhaps you could provide us with some context about this creature's capabilities. For safety purposes, you understand?" "Oh, sure," Jake said cheerfully. "Well, Mr. Whiskers is what we call a domestic cat. They're actually evolved from one of Earth's most efficient predators. Perfect hunters, really. Silent movement, incredible reflexes, razor-sharp claws, and the predatory instincts of their much larger cousins." "Larger cousins?" Admiral Vorthak squeaked. "You know, lions, tigers, leopards, jaguars, the big cats. Mr. Whiskers has all the same hunting instincts, just in a more compact package." The cargo bay doors hissed open with a mechanical sound that made several aliens jump. A standard Earth transport container sat in the middle of the bay, unremarkable except for the labels reading live animal, handle with care, and this side up in 17 different languages. "That's it?" asked Counselor Blurble, sounding almost disappointed. "It's just a box." "Well, yeah," Jake said, walking over to the container. "What did you expect? A cage made of titanium and force fields?" He pressed a button on the container's side, and the front panel slid open with a soft click. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a small gray and white head poked out of the opening. 2 green eyes surveyed the assembled crowd of aliens with the kind of casual indifference typically reserved for particularly boring museum exhibits. "That's it," Admiral Vorthak said, his voice rising an octave. "That's your terrifying predator?" Mr. Whiskers, a perfectly ordinary tabby cat, stepped delicately out of his carrier and sat down. He began to wash his paw with the kind of methodical precision that suggested he had all day and absolutely no interest in the dozens of alien eyes staring at him. "He's rather small," observed Chancellor Klebex, peering over his barricades. "And fluffy," added Skrittle. "Oh, that's just the camouflage," Jake explained casually. "Makes prey animals think he's harmless right up until the moment he strikes." As if summoned by Jake's words, a small maintenance robot rolled into the cargo bay, its mechanical sensors beeping as it went about its routine duties. Mr. Whiskers' head snapped toward the movement with laser-like focus. His pupils dilated to black pools, his body dropped into a perfect hunter's crouch, and his tail began to twitch with predatory excitement. "Ah," Jake said mildly. "He's seen something interesting." The cat moved like liquid death, flowing across the floor in complete silence. The maintenance robot, blissfully unaware of its impending doom, continued its mechanical routine right up until the moment 8 pounds of feline fury landed on top of it. What followed could only be described as a masterclass in predatory behavior. Mr. Whiskers batted at the robot's sensors with surgical precision, knocked it over with casual strength that seemed impossible for his size, and then began the kind of playful torture that cats have perfected over millions of years of evolution. The assembled aliens watched in horrified fascination as this small, fluffy creature reduced a piece of advanced technology to a collection of sparking, beeping components in approximately 30 seconds. "Sweet merciful cosmos," whispered Admiral Vorthak. "It's toying with its prey." "Oh yeah," Jake nodded approvingly. Classic cat behavior. He's not hungry, so this is just for fun. Mr. Whiskers, having thoroughly destroyed the maintenance robot, sat down again and resumed cleaning his paw, as if nothing had happened. The cargo bay was dead silent except for the occasional spark from the robot's remains. 2 weeks later, Captain Jake Morrison sat in what had formerly been a small, cramped diplomatic office, and was now the spacious quarters of Earth's senior ambassador to the Galactic Council. The promotion had come with a salary increase, a better view of the nebula, and a personal assistant who only required 15 minutes to operate the coffee machine. Mr. Whiskers had adapted to station life with the casual indifference of a creature that considered the entire universe to be his personal domain. He had established territorial control over 3 decks, reduced the station's pest problem to exactly 0, and somehow convinced the food service department that he required gourmet meals delivered to his personal cushion in the ambassador's office. The morning reports, Ambassador Morrison, said his new assistant, a relatively sensible alien named Kent, who belonged to a species that had evolved from something resembling a professional accountant. Thanks, Kent. Anything interesting? Well, sir, the Regilian delegation has formally requested that Mr. Whiskers be classified as a strategic weapon under the Galactic Arms Control Treaty. Jake looked over at Mr. Whiskers, who was currently engaged in the vital task of napping in a sunbeam, while simultaneously maintaining complete awareness of everything happening within a 50-meter radius. What did you tell them? That Earth's position is that Mr. Whiskers is a diplomatic pet, and therefore covered under the cultural exchange provisions, rather than the Arms Control Treaty. Good man. What else? The Centaurian ambassador would like to know if Earth has any creatures suitable for pest control. Apparently, they have an infestation of something called quantum mice that exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously. Jake grinned. Tell him I'll make some calls. I know a guy in Arizona who breeds terriers. Very good, sir. Also, Admiral Vortak has submitted a formal request for Earth to consider membership in the Galactic Defense Initiative. With what terms? Full partnership, shared technology agreements, and a mutual defense treaty that heavily favors Earth's interests. That's a change from the protection racket they were offering before. Kent consulted his tablet. Yes, sir. The request was filed approximately 30 minutes after Mr. Whiskers successfully hunted and caught what the Admiral described as that impossible-to-kill space mouse that has been terrorizing my quarters for 3 months. Jake looked over at Mr. Whiskers again. The cat had apparently sensed the attention and opened one green eye to acknowledge Jake's existence before closing it again and resuming his nap. You know, Kent, I'm starting to think we've been thinking about diplomacy all wrong. How so, sir? Well, we've been trying to convince these guys that humans are worth taking seriously by showing them our technology, our military capabilities, our scientific achievements. But really, all we needed to do was demonstrate our mastery over the galaxy's most efficient killing machines. You mean cats, sir? I mean cats. Think about it. We took apex predators that could survive in any environment, hunt anything that moves, and operate with complete independence, and we convinced them to live in our houses and purr when we pet them. That's not domestication, Kent. That's a protection racket. Kent made a note on his tablet. Shall I include that analysis in the diplomatic briefing, sir? Absolutely. Also, send a message to Earth. Tell them to start preparing care packages for our new alien friends. I think the Galactic Council is ready to learn about dogs. The office's communication system chimed with an incoming message. Ambassador Morrison. Came Admiral Vortak's voice, noticeably more respectful than it had been 2 weeks ago. We have a situation in Cargo Bay 7. Something is making strange noises, and none of our security teams are willing to investigate. Jake looked at Mr. Whiskers, who had opened both eyes and was now staring intently at the office door. On my way, Admiral. Mr. Whiskers seems interested. The cat stood, stretched with the kind of casual elegance that made it clear he was only cooperating because it suited his current mood, and padded toward the door. As they walked through the station's corridors, Jake couldn't help but notice how other aliens now stepped aside to let them pass. Not out of fear of him, but out of deep, respectful wariness of the small predator walking beside him. "You know what the best part is, Mr. Whiskers," Jake said conversationally. "They think you're the scary one. They have no idea that back home, you're afraid of the vacuum cleaner." Mr. Whiskers flicked his tail in what might have been acknowledgement, or might have been a reminder that some secrets should remain between species. They reached Cargo Bay 7 to find Admiral Vorthak and a full security team standing outside the doors, all looking deeply uncomfortable. "What's the situation?" Jake asked. "Unknown creature in the cargo bay," Vorthak replied, making hostile noises. "Our equipment suggests it's approximately the same size as Mr. Whiskers." Jake looked down at his feline companion, who had now assumed the focused, alert posture that meant he had detected something interesting. "Well," Jake said, "opening the cargo bay doors, let's go see what Earth's second most efficient predator thinks of the station." As they stepped into the cargo bay, a small black and white shape bounded out of the shadows, tail wagging furiously. "Oh good," Jake grinned. "Patches made it safely." Behind him, Admiral Vorthak made a sound like a deflating balloon. "Please tell me that's not another predator." "Oh no," Jake said cheerfully, watching as the small border collie puppy play bowed at Mr. Whiskers, who responded with the kind of patient tolerance typically reserved for beloved but slightly dim relatives. "That's not a predator at all. That's what we call man's best friend." The silence from the assembled aliens was deafening. "Best friend?" Vorthak whispered. "Yeah, dogs. We bred them to be loyal, intelligent, and absolutely devoted to humans. They'll do anything for us. Hunt, guard, rescue, fight, die if necessary. Complete and total loyalty to our species." Jake scratched Patches behind the ears while the puppy wiggled with joy and Mr. Whiskers supervised the interaction with feline dignity. "So just to be clear," he continued conversationally, "we've got apex predators that we convinced to live in our houses and love us, maniac hunters that we bred to be completely devoted to our well-being and follow our every command." Admiral Vorthak stared at the scene before him. A human casually petting two Earth creatures that represented millions of years of predatory evolution refined into the perfect companions. "Captain Morrison," he said faintly, "I believe we may need to discuss upgrading your diplomatic status again." "Ambassador," Jake corrected gently. "And yeah, I think that might be a good idea. Especially since the transport bringing the Earth delegation next month is also carrying my neighbor's 3 German shepherds." The sound Admiral Vorthak made was barely audible, but it was definitely the sound of a being who had just realized that his species' position in the galactic hierarchy had been permanently and irrevocably changed by the simple act of underestimating the humans and their terrifyingly loyal animal friends. Mr. Whiskers, apparently bored by the conversation, had curled up for another nap. This time he had chosen Admiral Vorthak's ceremonial cape as his bed. Nobody dared to move him.